Oh, I think it's an amazing achievement in itself to bring so many scientists together from all over the world to fight one disease together. It almost reminds me of the great fight against smallpox when the whole world during the Cold War decided to put their differences aside and fight one disease. And maybe today we see the beginning of that.
Do you think it also heralds a new era of greater openness, greater transparency between nations when something like this, which is a global crisis, faces us all?
Yeah, I think in crisis can bring out the best in people. Sometimes it brings out the worst. I have to believe it brings out the best. And I think we're seeing part of that here today. I think we're seeing part of that here with the solidarity that people are showing towards China, with the help and assistance that's going to other countries. I think we all understand viruses know no borders, and we all have vulnerable communities that we need to help. And what we learn in one place will help us in the next. So I think that realization is there. Now we need to turn that into a reality. We need to make diagnostics, we need to make vaccines, we need to make treatments, and we also need to communicate more effectively with our populations as to how they can protect themselves. And we've seen that in communities in China and Singapore. We need to empower our communities.
So if you could point to practical outcomes from this, what would you say was maybe on your list of the things you'd hoped to achieve? What would you now say you can point to them and say, right, we've done this?
Well, one thing I was glad they did was really look not just at the geographic priorities, but look at what we need to do right now in terms of the things we need to develop right now, in terms of the knowledge around transmission, the knowledge around the clinical severity, the ongoing clinical trials that were already started in China and could be started in other countries. So we need to, knowledge will take a time to generate, and complex knowledge takes a long time, but there are things we need to know now, and they've really prioritized that. And also, we're going to have to make some big decisions. These decisions aren't just about developing a vaccine. If we're going to make that vaccine ultimately accessible to everyone, we're going to have to make some big investments in how to scale up production of these vaccines and how to make sure they're available to everybody. And that's going to make a requirement for some pretty big figure discussions around who's going to back that and who's going to make that happen, because it's not just the science. It's the financing of this endeavour that's just as important.
And the timescale of up to 18 months, that's still what we're looking at practically.
Yeah, I think we can have a vaccine very quickly, but we have to make sure that that vaccine is safe, is efficacious, and we have a duty of care to ensure that we first do no harm. So we need to be sure. But there are things we can do with existing therapeutics, and so we're not without measures. We've got non-pharmaceutical interventions, non-medical interventions that we can use at community level in terms of social distancing, self-protection. We have public health surveillance, we have quarantine and isolation, we have treatment. And again, we must support. If you look in China, many people have been saved by simple supportive care, oxygen therapy, ventilation. Our concern is China has a strong health system, but what if this disease gets to somewhere that doesn't? You've seen hundreds, thousands of severe cases in China have all been able to access a pretty sophisticated level of healthcare. That doesn't exist in the rest of the world. So that's our fear.